Okay, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Mateus Cruz, and today we will start uh, studying the book Quarkus in Action. We are back after 2 weeks without the book club sections, and today we will restart studying the chapter 7 with Martin Stefanko. Okay. Martin, feel free to share your screen and talk about this chapter 7.
Okay, thank you,
And
Mateus.
thanks a
So,
lot again for your time.
no worries. So, hopefully, you see yourself because I am today on a single screen. So, you should be able to see the book now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, today we are basically crossing halfway through the book. The chapter 7 is actually right at the middle. So we are now going to talk about databases, or more precisely, one, in my personal opinion, awesome API on top of Hibernate framework that we probably all know because it's basically de facto database access ORM, object relational mapping in Java world, which is called Panache, which we decided to focus on in the book. Uh, Chapter 7 is actually one of the longest chapters that we have in the book. So I decided that we will not go like implementing directly what is inside the book, because inside the book, I will just skim through this. We basically are introducing different database to every existing service so far. So in reservation, we are doing Panache with Active Record with Postgres SQL. In inventory, we are doing MySQL with the repository pattern. In rental, we are doing MongoDB, NoSQL. And basically, at the end of the chapter, there will be a surprise, which I will leave to the end of the talk. But you see that basically we decided to choose different databases with different APIs to showcase as much as possible. So this chapter is actually, I think, around like almost 50 pages. So we are not going through like all of the fun parts where you need to adjust all of these free services for database accesses. So what I will do today is I will actually create just a new application. If I haven't used Quark before, this is just my script that is encapsulating Quarkus CLI. Let's call it horror movie DB. Because you probably don't know, but I am extremely big fan of horror movies, and we are closing on Halloween. So what else I can talk about than horror movies? So we will run our application in dev mode again. Just don't be afraid by seeing my strange aliases. This is just idea with Quarkus dev, nothing fancy. So we are running in dev mode and we have our application running here. I can just open a new terminal and verify that we are running and we are on the correct application. Okay, so actually, I'm surprised that this is not 329 already, because I was expecting that I will be downloading a bunch of artifacts today, but pleasantly surprised. At least I should have some cache. Okay, so databases. Probably you know that Hibernate team is also, or was also, in Red Hat and now in IBM. So Hibernate is very closely collaborating with Quarkus. We have a bunch of Hibernate people on our Quarkus calls every week. So of course, people in Hibernate are, or are like they still are very interested in actually innovating the database access also through Quarkus. And one of these innovation points was Panache. Panache, written like this, Panache. is basically just a abstraction layer on top of your normal Hibernate ORM access platform, or on top of JPA, let's put it this way, which is kind of opinionated API, and you will see why in a minute. So when I want to use anything in Quarkus, what I do need to start with by adding extensions. And because I just, again, QA Quarkus extension add, I will just, not this one, I will just add two extensions, Hibernate ORM Panache and Postgres driver. So if this is successful, of course, I need to download it because I haven't used it on this version so far, but it should be pretty fast. And wow, actually, I see this for the first time. So I still don't have any entities. So of course, Quarkus shouts. So let me fix that. So I suppose everybody is familiar with JPA or Hibernate in one way or another. So you know that if you want to create an entity, let's call this Aurora. You need to create a class, which needs to have, of course, this entity annotation. Then you need to do usually some ID field. You need to create your private fields, generate getters and setters, equals hash code. And I think that should be everything to make it like a valid Pojo JPA entity. With Panache, basically what Panache did, oops, yeah, I want to remove this. What Panache did, it basically simplified this. Or should I write it? Let's not waste time. To basically, all you need to do is to write your fields. You can also write it as public. Let's do name public string evildoer. I don't know what to put there. Public Boolean, supernatural. Let's put it like this. Like, it doesn't really matter. At least you see that I didn't really prepare like anything. I want to do this like really from scratch. So if this would be a JPA entity, and probably we can like do it later, this should be private because it's like kind of like how Java is mandated to be. You need getters and setters, equals hash code, and you need add ID field, which I don't have here. Usually it's some numerical value, so I should add it here. What Panache will give you out of the box is that you just need to extend one single class called Panache entity, which will basically do more or less all that stuff for you in the background. So this is already a valid Panache entity. It just needs to have this add entity annotation, and it needs to extend Panache entity. Then you can write your fields as public, and don't worry, we will get to it. They will not be public in your final application, and basically everything else Quarkus does for you. If you wonder where my ID field is, I can probably, I don't need to download. You see that it's actually defined in that Panache entity. So if you need to basically have your own generation strategy for the ID or something like that, or like different type, you can also directly extend Panache entity base, which basically will give you all of the functionality except for the ID. So, okay, so that should be my valid entity. Now, if I want to use my entity in my application, let me rename this to or resource. Yes. Okay. I'm not sure if we will have time to get to this, but like hopefully it will compile. Let's do here horror. And we can remove this. Let me do it like this for the start. So instead of this, I would like to now actually persist something to a database. Uh, with Panache like this, if it's like really just extending Panache entity, this is what we call active record pattern. Why active record pattern? Because when you want to actually do any database operations which are actually propagated to database, you need to actually just call some methods either on the object of that class of the entity or on the entity class itself. So if I, for instance, want to just list all the entities in my database, uh, all I need to do is call my entity horror dot list all. So you see, this is a static method, which if I now call slash horror, will hopefully just list nothing because we have nothing inside the database. So you see this point, like basically you either have a static method on your entity class, which you can see is a bunch of stuff which we will not have place to list all of here. But if I want to persist something or update something, I actually need to create an entity object. So let me do that. Horror name. AI is very helpful. Let's do Halloween. Halloween. Horror. Evildoer. Not Halloween. Michael Biers. I think it's written like this. Supernatural. I think I can say that. So if I now I have my horror object. If I want to persist it, you know that in JPA, let's say you need to inject entity manager, that you need to do a EM persist, blah blah blah. Here with Panache, I will directly get persist method on my objects just by inheriting it from the Panache entity. So if I put it here and call my method again, it will fail because I know that it will fail because what did I forget? Something which I will always forget. So I knew that I will not forget it this time. What I forgot is actually to start a transaction, because if I want to actually, if I inserting into a database, I need to do it inside the transaction. And this is exactly the same as you would do with JPA. You are using the same JTA, Java Transaction API, or Jakarta Transaction APIs. And this is the add transactional annotation, which will basically start the transaction before this method is run, and it will commit the transaction if the method is executed successfully, or it will roll back the transaction if you throw any exception. So if I fix this, hopefully now when Quarkus restarts, I should get like nothing because I didn't return anything. But let me do another get endpoint, which will be, oh, let's do all, and this will be a list of horrors. And we will return that list all call that I showed you before. But before that, let me do another extension because we want to, and this is just repeating from, of course, oh, I can do just QD. Doesn't matter. Sometimes like this adding of extension doesn't like survive because I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but when you are adding extension or like changing the POM XML in general, we need to actually restart the whole Java process with Maven, and not only change stuff inside the JVM, which is like that like normal reload when you are just changing the Java source. So sometimes like it doesn't work, but like no big deal. Now that I have REST Jackson, if I create my horror again, and let me just put this Zoom thingy, stop sharing somewhere so I can read. If I now list all of my horrors, I am getting my persisted horror from a database. And like, if nobody is surprised that I'm telling you I'm sending something to a database and getting something to database, you remember that I didn't configure anything yet, right? This is empty. But basically not Panache, but in general, database access in Quarkus comes with dev services included. So if I press C here, we will see that I have actually one Postgres container started as a dev service because I have this What is it? JDBC Postgres SQL extension on my class path, and I didn't configure any URL. Connection URL to a database. So basically, again, Quarkus sees that I added an extension for Postgres, but I didn't configure any connection to Postgres. So it will start a container for me. And if I do Docker PS, I will see here Postgres running, which should be exactly the same container that you are seeing here, Blissful Agnesi. So you see that this is really connected to a real database and sending something to a real database. If I would remember how to write PSQL, Quarkus, this should actually work, I think. So if I take this one, Quarkus, yeah, so I can connect to the database directly. PSQL is just a command line client for Postgres. So if I do here DT plus, maybe this DT plus, yeah, this DT plus, we see that we have our horror table here. And if I do select star from horror, okay, I am like, you see that this is really persisted to a real database. So at least here you see the real power of the services, because we are actually now connected to a real Postgres database, which will be probably very close to what you will have in production, if not the same. So, and of course, this like image is also configurable. If we didn't mention that before, like most of the dev services will allow you to specify different versions of, like in my case, Postgres, if I need to. So you can be sure that you are developing your application on your local machine against very similar environment as you will have in production. Because typically with different frameworks, you are developing against something in memory like H2 or Derby, and only when you are pushing to production, you are connecting to a real database. So Quarkus will take care of this for you, and it will basically auto-configure everything that you will need. Okay, so that would be more or less like a start to Panache, because this is like really what I wanted to show just before we move on, because like there is always at least one person that will tell me that public fields are wrong, which I will always argue about, but let's not go that way. So let me quickly compile my application. MCPF is Maven Clean Package Fast with a bunch of flags. So now I should be able to run my application in Target, Quarkus run, Quarkus up, Quarkus run. It will just not run because now I really need a database if I'm not starting in dev mode, because I don't no longer have the dev service, right? Like dev service is gone. So, but my point is not this, because I would actually need to start the database and configure this Quarkus database JDBC URL, which is not point here. We will be actually doing this in chapter 11, I believe. So we will get to it. But what I want to show you is that if I go into Target and Quarkus up and Quarkus, no. Oh, where is it? Generated sources? No. Oh, Quarkus up. Sorry, because I always forget where is this. Up here. So here in this up, no. So then in Quarkus. Yeah, here. Here in this target Quarkus up / Quarkus, we have these two jars. And as you can already see, generated bytecode and transferred bytecode says for itself. So I just want to show you what that Panache extension is doing in the background during build time, and what will eventually end up in your application is very different from what you see here. Because if I unzip this transform jar, and I will open it in IDEA, so it's better for us to see. So that was Quarkus up, Quarkus, and here I am already generated. So my class is IO Xtefang Horror. So IO Xtefang Horror. You see that this is decompiled class file, really taken from that jar. So it is of course not like 100%, but you will get the point, like what actually that Panache extension is doing in the background. So you see that my public fields are now protected. which is already a change. I have getters and setters for all of my fields. I think that I should also have. Oh, maybe I don't, but I thought that I have also equals and hash code, but like maybe I would need it's somewhere else, but like well, maybe I don't. But like the idea is here. So okay, one thing we actually or like the panache extension change the privileges and it generates getters and setters. But that's like only one part of the story, because the other part is that if we see my resource, because you remember that I didn't have setters, so I needed to access the public fields directly, but that panache extension also rewrote all of the accesses of the public fields to use now that generates getters and setters. So in my bytecode, I have set name, set evildoer. So you see that in the end, in your code, you are able to use the public fields, and Panache will actually go ahead and it will rewrite everything to valid JPA state. So in your final jar, you are actually going according to a standard, which in my personal opinion is one of the best features that Quarkus is doing. And this is really showcasing that power that Quarkus has, or the Quarkus extensions have in the execution of any code that they need during build time. Because all of this is happening when I do Maven Queen package, not when I do Java minus jar. But in your packaged jar, you will have already setters and getters. Okay, so
Do
this
you,
is what. Go ahead.
sorry, did you unzip the transformer bytecode, yeah, or not?
Yes, I
Okay.
unzipped this transform bytecode jar because I know that this is where like that extension will put that actually changed classes.
Okay.
Because your like normal class is normally, let me do it like this, like the normal jar which is outputted by Maven is still here. If I would unzip this one or movie jar, we will see, where is it? Here, IO horror resource is not changed at all. This is like a normal, again, this is decompiled class file. So hopefully you are like able to catch up where I am. This is like a normal Maven output. This is your normal class file. But this transform bytecode jar, so this horror resource is actually output of the Quarkus extension or like build time processing.
And the
And this is,
generated bytecode. Uh,
sorry,
the generated bytecode. Could you show for us?
I can show you, but you will not see much there. Generated bytecode. So you see that there is a bunch of stuff, like very, very different stuff, like some config subclasses, etc. It's like very like this is usually not something that you will see or touch. This was really just my like I really oh well, it's actually also trying to rewrite some packages that we have there, so I will stop it. This is really just I wanted to show you that we are really changing your code when you are using
Yeah.
Quarkus extension. So it's not like for fun that split to build time and runtime. There is actually a lot of processing done during build time, which you will not see
Great,
eventually,
great.
unless you will be crazy and you will be unzipping Quarkus jars, which of course everybody is doing, right? Okay, so can I move on?
Let's go.
Hopefully, yes. So I really don't have place here. We are also not going that deep inside the book into what everything you can do with Panache. Here we are just listing basically parses, delete, like that typical operations. But you can also like very nicely do selects with like this where clause with this JPQL or Hibernate QL. I don't remember the name of the language, which are nicely integrated into that whole processing. So if I would like, let me do one more thing before. So that dev service is also coming with an option to pre-populate the database if you will create a specific file called import SQL in resources. Here, basically, you can write any arbitrary SQL that will be executed when the dev service is starting. So I can do here insert into horror values. I think it's written like this. Halloween. Make LVS. No, I think like this.
I think you need to. I don't know, but you think to. Uh, the string
Yeah,
is
put
a single quote. Single quote.
single
This,
quotes. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
forgetting some things. Yes, I think that you might be correct. And probably I also need to do this. And it's still not good. Let me do hex of myself. Horrors Malin. Okay, I am missing this one. Okay, this is just helping myself. So horror will be with lowercase, and I need to do here. This will be horrors, I believe. So let me try it like this. Oh, come on.
You need to before after the or
Oh,
you need to
super not.
set
No, 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 no. I think that we are already moving on. Sorry, I wasn't listening. I did Boolean supernatural, so this needs to be like this. Oh, supernatural is of time Boolean, but expression is of time big int. What? Okay, go ahead. What were you saying? Mateus?
hi.
Yeah,
Okay.
what were you saying?
You don't need to add this ID or value. No, no. Before the or you need to set ID name and zero and the
So
ID
I don't
name.
need this, you're saying. Like this.
Not. Sorry. After the or you need to add the columns. Not
Oh, like this.
ID.
ID name. Oh, what was it? You will do natural like this, and here will be next wall. This is what happens when you don't prepare. Come on.
Let's see. The same year. The supernatural. Uh,
Let me do it one more time because like seal names. No. What did? Oh yeah. Now it's wrong. And now it works. Success. Okay, so hopefully, yes, now we see it. So now, please, AI, help me insert into horror ID. No, you will not. Values next wall. Horror sequence. Let's do Friday the 13th. Oh, let's do just JSON through. Boom. So this is just to show you that this is really the SQL that will be executed on every restart of the application. Of course, I made a mistake. Oh, come on. It's getting late. Okay, so at least we see that. Come on, still.
We need to close the next file. We need to close.
Thank you. Thank you. So at least you will see like that Quarkus dev mode will survive all of these like tries because I don't remember what I need to write. So any SQL that you will write into this import SQL will now get executed every time the basically application restarts, because we also out of the box have this drop and create schema management strategy. So our database is dropped and recreated with every basically restart of the application, which is okay for development, but you will probably need something else in production. Okay, so, and now I forgot what I wanted to show. So I have this now basically giving me some predefined data. I can add more if I want to. Let me change this to something else. Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe. So, of course, if I would now persist something, hopefully it still works as expected, which is great. So what I wanted to show next. I think that we can move on. Okay, so yeah, now I remember. So if you want to just list some of the, let me for the just purposes of the demo change the application so we have like some like different data. If you want to, for instance, list only supernatural movies, let's do here again list horror. With Panache, you can do just horror list, and you can see here that I can take directly query with some objects and parameters, and there are like a bunch of options that you need to go into documentations to learn more about. But I can, like, the easiest thing that I can do here is just to say supernatural is true, I believe. So if I now do all, I will get my Halloween, which is supernatural, and Friday 13th, which is now for the purposes not. But if I do only supernatural, I will get only Halloween. So you see that this is extremely easy to basically find out what you need to do, because you either do entity dot, and here you see persist, delete. This persistence is not so cool, but there should be like, I think that's it. Persist and flush if you need to directly push something to a database, or you can do big horror, so class, and just list through the methods which will give you what you need. So you have also counts, you can delete all if you need, delete by ID. All of these operations are already provided for you directly encapsulated in the active record, which is your entity. So one last thing that I want to show here, that you also have the options to stream is not so important, but there is paging. If I didn't see it. Oh, I don't remember how, but you can also do paging, and I don't remember how. I think with one of these parameters. So, okay, I will not go there because I don't remember how it's being done, but you also have paging encapsulated in this active record. Okay, so I will park it here because I spent more time than I expected on it. This would be that active record. This is what we are introducing in the reservation service as the first thing. Now I want to move to the panache with repository pattern, which is already included inside the same extension that I already have in that Hibernate ORM panache. Basically, what it will give you is that you can externalize the database operations outside of the entity. So if you don't want to have everything, because now you have actually your model and your operations on the model encapsulated everything in the entity class, in my case, the horror class. But if I want to have something more close to different frameworks where I have a separate repository, which is extrapolating operations, and my entity is just about the data, Panache also can do this out of the box. So I can just create, what is this? Okay, I didn't want it to do this. Let me do a Java class, which will be an interface called horror repository. And this interface now needs to extend, surprise, surprise, Panache repository with the type of the entity that it's basically utilizing. And if I'm not mistaken, it also needs to be in, and I need to actually check that because I forgot. Reservation service repository pattern. Yes, it needs to also be defined as CDI bin. So, but this should be more or less it, I think. So then inside my any CDI bin, and you remember that in Quarkus every Jaxares resource is a CDI bin, I can just inject my horror repository, and basically then I will replace all of these direct operations with horror repository dot persist my horror and horror repository dot list all. So you see the methods or the operations are exactly the same. This is only about where the operations actually are. So if you prefer this kind of like approach, at least you see that this is extremely easy. You see this is exactly the same. So exactly the same call as before. And if I call my application again, oh, okay. Really? So maybe it doesn't need to be. It needs to be a class. Yeah, it needs to be a class. I don't know why I thought that this needs to be a.
The implements. We need to add the implements, I think.
Sorry?
You need to implement, I
Yeah,
think.
implement. Yes, you are correct.
Okay,
So
I have a question.
go ahead.
Some people use string as ID. How can I do it with Panache repository or Panache entity? How can I
Okay.
use a string
Okay,
for
let me
ID?
just fix this before I will respond that
Okay,
because I still have one error and I don't see where it is. Repository list all. Okay, here. What do you don't like? What is wrong here? I don't understand what is wrong, so let me do this. Just clean the project because I think that if I'm rewriting this kind of like stuff a lot in the background, then sometimes I can have like old versions of the classes. So let me just really quickly restart this so I see that if I have everything correct, because like in idea I don't see any error, so I am just surprised. Yeah, so it was just some cache. So you see that it works as before. So to answers your question, basically, I already mentioned that with active record pattern, you can extend this Panache entity base, and then you can directly define your ID with generated whatever value that you need. So here you would just do string ID if you need it like this. And with just let me return this. With the repository, you can also return implement Panache repository base, where you can see that except for entity, you are also taking the type of the ID. So I will do base string like this. hopefully that's enough to answer the
Great.
question. So if you need your own ID, not Panache entity and Panache repository, but Panache entity base, Panache repository base. Okay, so that would be more or less repository, because this is otherwise exactly the same. You see that I'm still picking the data for the import SQL. Everything is exactly the same. Okay, moving on. This basically repository pattern is, I believe, in inventory service. In rental, we wanted to do something slightly different, and we wanted to do NoSQL. NoSQL in Quarkus, basically, like more or less every NoSQL database that I know is having a separate extension, but we opted to use MongoDB because Mongo is actually also providing Panache-like API. So it's not directly Panache, but it's Panache look and feel. So this is what I'm going to use also now here in my application. And now I am going to do something which I hope that it will work, because I am really not sure it will. I will remove basically Hibernate, ORM, Panache, and Postgres SQL, and I will, okay, not this, quite Quarkus RM. I think that this will kill my application. Oh, it did not. It will not compile, but dev mode is still running. And then I will go into the book because I don't remember MySQL. MySQL. Oh. Now let's go back. Let's go back, because one more thing that I want to show. So one more thing which I forgot to show. So let's go back to actually the PostgreSQL, because I want to show you this one small extension, which is called ORM REST Data Panache. Because what this will give you out of the box, or not out of the box, but let me also do small rai open API. I'm restarting the dev mode before the Postgres can start, which is extremely happy about. And come on, you can survive this. This is just adding extensions. I am not removing anything. Come on. I will probably not implement the Mongo because it's extremely similar. So I will show you just the book, because I want to also show you the reactive stuff at the end. So, okay. So if I now go to my dev UI, we can check that in my Swagger UI, I have only my 3 endpoints that I implemented manually. What that REST data Panache is about, and you will see inside the book that this is coming for JDBC with Hibernate, but also for the Mongo, and also for active drivers, which we will get into in a moment, is that basically you can, okay, you are good. You can just do an interface. Let me do like horror CRUD resource, which will be an interface that will extend now Panache repository resource, I believe, which will take horror and long, which is type of my entity, I believe. Oh, come on. I don't remember anything. Manage entity reservation long. But this should be correct. I don't know why IDEA is telling me that it's not. So hopefully this should be enough to just restart my application. What? That's because I'm probably mixing the I cannot mix like probably the active record with the repository inside one application. So let me roll back to the active record because I really don't have time to now debug this. Still not.
The author needs to extend panache entity, no? It's not necessary.
Well, it still does extend panache entity. This is good,
Okay, sorry.
but this is expecting free, and it shouldn't expect free. Panache entity, it expands the repository. It shouldn't. I want this one. Okay, so now I see.
Yeah, I am looking the page
I
193.
did wrong because it's getting late and my eyes are getting bad. So I was extending wrong class. I need Panache entity resource, not Panache repository resource. And now it should compile, hopefully. Great. Not this one, this one. And now if I just refresh that Open API, look what happened. Quarkus, the REST data extension, actually went ahead and it generated all CRUD operations for us. So, like, of course, this name is taken from the name of the resource, but it is also configurable. Usually you would have only horror resource, but I already have horror resource, and this would be just /horror. But you see that I have all the operations already ready for me. So if I do HTTP / horror CRUD, I should get my CRUD. I can do count, for instance. I have like also post to create, which will directly take JSON. So if I actually do this, I'm wondering what will happen. 500, of course. Let me try to do here, 3. 201. So if I now do CRUD, oh, no, failed to add an entity. Okay, so I'm missing something and I don't know what, but like you get the point. Like I am just like missing some like configs, or probably it's something wrong in my. I would suspect that this should work. Okay, I don't have time to add the detached entity post. Okay, so you actually think that that entity exists? Oh, I know. I need to do this. And now it works. So I cannot pass the ID because ID is generated. Sorry. So basically, you will get all of these CRUD operations for free, which I think is extremely useful. And this works with every Panache extension that we have inside the book. Okay, so that would be REST data panache. We also have here a separate section about transactions, which I will skip for now because this is actually just repeating of what most people know about JTA. But Quarkus also provides you with a programmatic API to start the transactions in either with this Quarkus transaction class. Oops, come on, or you can do this requiring new or join existing, which is extremely nice API if you need to programmatically decide whether to join or not join transaction or start new transaction. Then basically NoSQL, as I mentioned, we opted to use MongoDB in rental, I believe, which is exactly the same, or the API is exactly the same as we had so far, just you need to extend Panache Mongo entity, but otherwise exactly the same. And you optionally also have this Mongo entity annotation, which is not required because you can also define this. And I don't think that we have it inside the book through configuration. I don't remember which configuration, but there is configuration for this if you need to specify the name of the collection or some different parameters. But this is not required. So you only need to really extend this Panache Mongo entity. And then if you want to rename properties, which I didn't talk about, but in normal panache, you can do this with normal JPA annotations like at column, and I don't remember what are the others. But in Mongo, you need to use this bson library if you want to do that. But other than that, then you have exactly the same operations like persist, like list all, etc. List active, which is our just like custom method, which is using the list method as we did before. So you see that there is no really point to rewrite my test application because it's exactly the same. So, but other than that, it will also start the dev service Mongo for you. It will basically behave exactly, just that import SQL will not be used, I believe. But I'm not sure about it. I would actually need to try. Okay, so I will park NoSQL because I really want to spend last 10 minutes on this reactive data access because I believe that this is important, and it also sets the podium or the stadium for us for the next two chapters, because we talked about reactive when we basically I believe in the first chapter when we started explaining Quarkus, and we told you that Quarkus is built on top of Vertex, on top of reactive core, and that reactive core is in one way or another going to uh, bubble up to your applications. Of course, you can choose not to use it, but if you will choose to use it, then for instance, then basically Quarkus will give you the support for the reactive stack basically all the way. So from your front-end application down to a database, and on the database end, here is what basically Quarkus provides, and that's called Hibernate Reactive. This is coming from the Hibernate team, so it's just basically non-blocking API on top of non-blocking database drivers. So not every database is supported in this way because there needs to be a support on the database end. But if there is a support for this, then basically Quarkus will give you an API to do all of your operations or database operations in non-blocking way. And I'm purposely not going to explain what that is because we are actually going to talk about that on the next lecture, which is solely focused on explaining reactive programming. So here I just really want to show you really quickly how easy it is to switch the application which we currently have with the active record with this Panache entity with the blocking API to a reactive driver. So in my application, I am now running a normal Postgres in a normal blocking way. And if I want to change it to Hibernate Reactive, now I will help myself with the book because that's a lot of typing. I will remove blocking Panache, JDBC Postgres, and also the ORM REST data Panache. And let me just fix the command in my terminal. So this is now removed, and now it failed because like this is like a very intrusive operation. Where is the book? And I will add exactly the same annotations, just in their reactive variants. So I am adding Hibernate ORM Panache. Oh, come on, I didn't copy paste. Come on, sorry. So hopefully now I did copy paste. Oh, come on, I did. This is like copy pasting from a PDF. Come on, I'm pressing Ctrl C. Thank you. So I am adding Hibernate Reactive Panache, Reactive Postgres client, and Hibernate Reactive REST Data Panache. So if I do this to my application, if I would try to run now dev mode, it will not run after it will download reactive extensions. Why is that? Is because this, now I'm basically telling Quarkus to use reactive drivers my code, where is it, is no longer going to compile like this, because on my horror, I no longer have actually the panache entity coming from this panache repository. This will be now actually Hibernate reactive panache. This is one error that I need to fix, but this is more or less everything that I needed to change, like just the package now coming from the Hibernate reactive panache entity. But in my actual classes, and I'm like surprised that this is not all red. It should be more red. Okay, now it's more red. You will see that this is not working like this, because my list all now doesn't return no longer list of horrors. It actually, let me do it like this so it's more visible. It actually returns a uni of list of horrors. So what is that? Let me actually return this and not panache entity base, because we know that this is horror. Uni is one of the two types coming from a project called Smorai Mutiny, which is an integral project that you will see inside Quarkus, and we already saw it in chapter 4 when we were developing gRPC services, because like I said, like it's kind of going to bubble up one way or another, so we will run into Uni and Multi in your applications. Uni is just a promise, like an asynchronous result. Basically, it represents either a computed value or an error. Multi, on the other hand, which is the second type from Solar Mutiny, represents an asynchronous non-blocking stream or reactive stream, where you can have potentially unbounded number of values or errors, but basically it will stream the values one after another, and when the stream is finished, it will either emit competition or an error. We will explain this in detail in the next lecture. For now, you need to just remember or understand that this uni either holds a value or it holds an error when it returns, and it's asynchronously computed. So here you will see, or you see that I am returning a uni of list of horrors. So basically, I am returning a value asynchronously, which is a list in this case. I need to do exactly the same thing here. And in my persist, written like this, I believe nothing will happen, because I have transactional there, which will not be in my application, but I want to try. Yeah, panache entity resource will also be sorry about that. Something else. So let me do this. Boop. Again, just a change in package. And I don't remember those packages out on top of my head. You actually can see it inside the book, like exactly what is being changed, exactly this two, which I am changing right now. So we see that it's again starting a Postgres, because Postgres is like providing both drivers. But now, if I do http:/order/all, I am getting the same data, but I am getting them in a reactive way. You might see that this is not much, or you don't see the value as of now, because Quarkus will actually do all of the magic here just by returning that uni from a REST resource. Quarkus will handle the whole asynchronous chain in the background, all the subscriptions, etc., that we will talk about next week. But what these reactive APIs will give you is that basically, if you do like persist like this, you can basically start building that reactive pipeline. So I can say that once my persist, because now persist, you will see, is actually again returning, or not returning, but it's using the uni of panache entity base. It's returning uni of entity panache base. So I can directly here see that I already have these asynchronous operations that I can call on my class. Like, for instance, I can map it to something else, and let me do entity. well, I think that I can do it like this, because this is horror, and then this will be nice horror. Let's do just H, and let's just say that H that name. Oh no, let's not do mapping because that will be just invoke something called. Oh, sorry, my cat is jumping on me. Hey, come on. And let's just do cout resisted horror page dot id. So we see the id. So if you call your method like this, yeah, this return horror. If you just call the method like this and nothing will subscribe to it, I believe that this will do nothing. What? What do you don't like? I still need. Okay, let's do this. Okay, this works. So now it will still not do anything because like no reactive session was started. So I need to remember what was the actual annotation to do with transaction, to do transactional in reactive way. So this will be with transaction. And I will basically, if I call it like this, I still believe that nothing will happen. Yeah, nothing will happen because what I will need to do is actually do this. And this will be uni of horror. Because as I was telling you between the lines, which you are not probably understanding right now, this uni is an asynchronously computed thing. Uh, and by design, it is lazy. So that means that if nobody asks to be like for this uni to be computed, like for instance we are asking for it to be computed when we are making the http call, then this will actually never run. Like this whole chain which I already written here is not run unless somebody subscribes for the item produced by this uni. So if I don't return it like this, then basically that promise is not executed. So I need to actually return it from my method or manually call subscribe and subscribe with my like manually written subscriber. But I will tell you next week that this is not a good idea. So this is how usually you will handle it. But the subscription is not like required to be run only from or returned to be only from the Jaxares method. There are multiple ways how you can like pass these units to Quarkus on multiple fronts. So typically this is how you will develop your reactive application. You will create the uni somehow, either getting it back from the framework or create it manually with these Fluent APIs, which I kind of already showed you, even if I didn't want to, because I wanted to just show this persistent horror log inside the console. But you see that basically whatever you will define in that pipeline is not executed when this method is run. It is executed only after it is returned from the HTTP resource, and somewhere during that call in Quarkus, somebody subscribes to that uni. Only then all of this that call is executed. And I can actually, I think, show it to you. Let me try to show this as last thing. So I will take my horror unit into a variable, and let me just do here. Yeah, let's do created horror in the methods. like this. Let me see what will happen. Not this one, this one. Yeah. So at least you will see what I wanted to see. You see that this created horror line is actually before this persisted horror line, because this dot call is executed only after I will return the uni somewhere to the processing. And basically, this is what I will end on, because what I want to understand is that this is way harder to debug, maintain. You will see that even inside the book, we will get into extremely complicated, well, you can already see it here, extremely complicated chains by the end of the book. You see also this call, like persisted application, blah, 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 blah. Somewhere here, I think that we already had something more complex, like on item, transform, etc. So it can get pretty complicated, but what you will get in turn is way more, like way better utilization of the existing resources. And I will show you how exactly that executes on the next session. But for now, you will just trust me that with reactive programming, you can get way better throughput than you will get just with basic blocking APIs. And with that, I believe that's everything that I wanted to show today. So I will stop sharing. And if there are no questions, I think that we can end here.
From my side, I do not have any question.
Sorry that I took it a little over, because like really this
No
is one of
problem.
the longest chapters that we have there, and I
Nice.
skipped like 1/4 with Mongo.
No problem.
Okay, so if there is nothing else, then I think that we can adjourn.
Marcelina, do you have any question? And John or Ian, I don't
No,
know.
I don't have one currently. I just had one before with transaction and transactional. So that was cleared. I have once seen the book, maybe. But I think I can ask a question. It's like, what is the fundamental difference between these two annotations, the transactional and with transactions, when
Yeah,
we are using the uni?
yeah, that big transaction is required when you are using Hibernate Reactive, when you are returning uni, because basically transactional is expecting blocking calls inside that call, inside that method, because like Hibernate by design is like not like sending everything into a database. It is collecting the operations in something which is called persistent context inside the method, and only when your method is finished, when the Hibernate decides to commit or rollback the transaction, then that persistent context operation is flushed into a database. With reactive APIs, because you are doing everything asynchronously, you cannot
Yes.
do the exactly same operation, because when your method is finished, only then somebody will basically get into your uni. They need to basically send the operation like the persist that I did into a database. And when the asynchronous result is coming back, only then execute all of that pipeline, that call, transform, etc. that I had. Like I had only call, but inside the book
Yes.
was more operations. And this is not what the transactional is prepared to do, because you need to have actually the logic inside that commit part after the method is executed to actually wait for the asynchronous result and only then execute the pipeline. So that's why Quarkus has its own reactive transactional. And
Transaction
actually,
with
it was
transaction.
reactive transactional before, but for some reason, I don't remember why it was changed to with transaction.
So
Maybe
that's why
due
I
to
just
the
got confused.
specification, no? I don't know.
Sorry?
Maybe, I don't know, due to the specification of transaction.
Oh, well, the transactional, at transactional is actually inside the specification. That's Jakarta transactions
Yeah.
now, the Java transaction API, JTA. But
Mhm.
the reactive APIs are only in microprofile. And I'm going to talk about that on the next lecture. So like the
Okay,
whole
Okay,
reactive
okay.
stuff is only in microprofile and JTA is in Jakarta. So you see like it's like not possible for JTA to actually introduce that reactive parts as of now. It will probably be there in the future, but as of now, this needs to be a custom Quarkus annotation. Because
Yeah.
also in microprofile, you cannot really use JTA because it's not part of the like. Now we are getting into politics. This is no longer code, so I can, like we can spend a lot of time on politics. So it's like
Yes.
for now, it's not possible to do.
great.
Great.
Okay, then the next section, let's start the chapter 8, starting about learning what is reactive program. Okay, explaining Ismari mutiny, sorry, and analyzing how the reactive paradigm integrates into the Quarkus architecture. I think are great subjects for the next chapter.
And plus
And
virtual threads and Project Loom and how it fits into all of this. Yeah.
great. I am getting the cover, just this chapter covers and the bullets. But
Yeah,
perfect. Thanks.
it will be there, but it's not in the bullets.
Great. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Martin, Stefanko, Jan, too, and Marcelini for today to stay with us. And have a good day. Have a good afternoon, night. I don't know. And see you in
Good.
the next
Right.
section. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.